Hey everyone, I'm Jeff Gibbard, the President and Chief Strategist of True Voice Media. I'm also the host of Conversations, the True Voice Media podcast where I bring on fascinating people from all walks of life and pick their brains about social media, entrepreneurialism, success, and so much more. For around the next 30 minutes, I get to have a really interesting conversation. You should stick around and listen in. So without further delay, let's get started. This is episode 33. I'm here with Bryn Tillman, founder and CEO of Social Sales Link. Bryn, tell everyone what Social Sales Link is and who you are.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks for having me. Social Sales Link is really a hybrid of a sales training company, but we only focus on LinkedIn and social selling to fill the top of the pipeline.
Very cool. So to give everybody that's listening a little bit of background, you and I met many moons ago when you were working at Business Development University. So not a huge leap for you to go from business development training into a more specialized and niche area of social selling. So why'd you make the shift and what kind of prompted you to go there? Because when we met, it was really all about that kind of in-person thing and focusing on holistic social selling. Was that always your focus to go towards the online area, or was this something that you saw and you just kind of jumped on?
I think it was a progression. I've always been in sales and sales training, and I've always looked outside of the box to find new and better ways to do the job easier. I always hated cold calling, and my favorite thing was the relationship building piece. So I always spent a lot of time talking about how to grow your business networking in person and how to grow your business by getting client referrals and really leveraging your relationships to get in front of the right people. So when I saw LinkedIn in 2008, I was blown away that this was the answer to my prayers, because this now gives us the ability to search and filter our connections with the ability to really identify who knows who we're looking to get in front of. So it took what I always taught and really made it incredibly powerful for prospecting.
So is that kind of the pitch for social selling as opposed to, other types of selling? And are you sort of an advocate for social selling in place of kind of the traditional cold calling and selling? Or is it more of this is a way to augment and shifting the majority of your efforts there can pay off or pay dividends? What's kind of what's the pitch for why social selling?
Well, number one, the buying journey has changed. So our buyers are looking at things differently. They are leveraging social and internet to really help form their buying decisions, their purchasing decisions. And in fact, the Challenger sale had put out there that 57% of the buying decision is made before any sales rep even knows that they're in the market. So it's so vital to make sure that you are part of that 57%, that you have influence in that 57%, or else they're going somewhere else. Because if it's not you, it's your competitor. So I think that's a big piece. The second piece is cold calling. Even if people argue and say it isn't dead, it's such a horrible activity to have to do. And the people on the other side hate being cold called. So even if there's an argument that it's still effective, its effectiveness is so small that I don't think it's even worth any time or energy. So I do believe social selling replaces the cold call. Absolutely. That being said, the goal of social selling in my eyes is to get to the first phone call or appointment. So there still is an entire other piece of taking it from first appointment to close that I no longer really focus on, but have great partners that I refer that piece out to. I'm truly focused on, and for the primary reason that if you talk to anyone in sales, whether they're right or wrong, if you say to them, what's the number one challenge? They'll say getting in front of the right person. So social selling does that really well. So I focus in that little tiny niche of making sure that you are getting in front of the right person, whether it's through a warm market or through thought leadership, getting them engaged and getting them to want to have a phone call with you.
So you said so many things that they resonate with me, and I completely agree. So I always say to people, because, being in social strategy, people always say, oh, you're in social media, so you probably spend a lot of time behind the computer. And what I typically say to people is, actually, I use social media to get more coffees, lunches, breakfasts, happy hours, and dinners than anybody you've ever met. So you might think that I just sit here and Twitter all day, but I'm using that Twitter to set up a lunch appointment. I'm looking to use Facebook to meet people for happy hour. I'm setting up brunches over LinkedIn. So, I think there's a fallacy that people think social selling actually dehumanizes and removes us from it, when I think it actually gives us the quickest possible pathway to a face-to-face. So I love that. Yeah, you're like spot on with that. But you said something I think is really interesting, because I want you to clear something up for me. You said so much of the buying journey is done prior to the sale, and there's a lot of data to support that our buying journeys have changed. You may have seen the Zero Moment of Truth study that showed in between 2010 and 2011, the number of sources that we consult prior to a purchase doubled, and I'm sure it's more now. So as a social sales consultant, and you advise people on how to fill the top of the funnel with the right people, how much of that is reliant upon the content even before the relationship is created? And in that content, are you focusing specifically on creating kind of owned and earned content on a place that you have access to? It's like your website, or are you kind of advising around the web to kind of plant where your buyers might be different pieces of information? What's kind of your slant on it?
So I think every client needs a home base. Where are we bringing them to? A lot of times it's the blog on the website, but sometimes I'm dealing with sales reps who are like at McKesson or Aramark, and they don't have a website that matches what they're doing. So they can create content right inside of LinkedIn, and that can be their home base. The one thing I highly recommend, and I tell them all the time, is make sure you have a backup, because you never know what LinkedIn will do. You want to make sure you've got all your content. If it's a business owner, I highly recommend that it is a website that they own, because they own that. They have control over that. There's also the email list or the connections list that you own. So on LinkedIn, your connections are yours, and you have the right to export those and have them and keep them. And I recommend.
Is that still going, or wasn't that changed recently? It's back? Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So there were so many people up in arms. And anyway, so it is back, and you can export your connections. And we make sure our clients do that at least once a month, because that is this, like, as you mentioned, like, what do you own and what do you put out there? So there are key elements that I think you have to keep control of. That being said, for the right salespeople, I do believe blogging inside of LinkedIn is incredibly effective for many reasons. Number one, they push it out. Number two, it has great analytics. If you are, if you don't have really good website with great analytics and you don't have the capacity to do that, there's really great analytics. You know who's liking, sharing, commenting, so you can engage with your network. It was interesting. I was on a social selling platform today on a blog, and they have their comments turned off. And I just wanted to this isn't social.
Yeah, it's a broadcast.
It's right. So inside of LinkedIn, there's a lot of, it makes it very simple to share it, to tweet it out, to share it on Facebook, to share it into your LinkedIn groups in one full swoop. So there are some real benefits there. So I think your question was, though, what do you own and what's out there? I think you have to really customize that to each client, what their capacity is, what their budget is, and what their intent is.
So are you advising them sometimes to maybe, in addition to LinkedIn publishing, maybe use something like Medium if they're on Twitter, and maybe use something like the new Facebook Notes, if they're on Facebook? Are you advising that they use multiple platforms? And if you are you suggesting that they do the same content, slightly altered? How are you advising clients on that side of things?
So that's a great question. And Facebook Notes is interesting. I think it's for a long time, it's just being talked about now.
Well, they just changed it to look like Medium, basically. It's like it's become more of a blogging platform than kind of like a crappy afterthought.
So I'd love to see, and I'm not a Facebook person, but I would love to see how that's pushed. Is it pushed out to your network? Is it in the news feed the same way? Like the more it's liked, the higher it keeps coming up in feed. So I'd love to understand that a little bit more. But if my client were consumer based, I would definitely have them using Notes. But most of my clients by choice are B2B.
Yeah, it seems to be like that's a better place probably for social selling, as, even just getting the conversation started. I'd imagine that's a better place.
And actually, I'm going to throw the question back to you because I don't know the answer. But I do know that if you have the exact same blog on a couple of different websites, Google dings you.
Yes.
I don't know if that happens with Facebook and LinkedIn. Are they seeing?
So it's actually, it's something I've been thinking a lot about, which is why I asked you the question. But so because there's kind of two sides to it. So the first thing I think of is, let's say that there is a duplicate penalty content and you put the same content on 50 different websites. So if you look at the benefit of being visible on 50 different websites where maybe you have 1,000 or 2,000 followers, or let's say even 500, fans or friends or whatever, and you look at that and in aggregate across all of it, does that outweigh the penalty of not being discovered on Google? Possibly. There's a couple prominent bloggers who don't even really use a home base anymore, and they've started just putting their content everywhere because that's where the audience is. So that's one way of looking at it. The other way is, let's say there is a duplicate content. Do you try and fudge your way around it and then get the benefit of Google by having that on your home base, the original content, and then doing a variation or a snippet or an excerpt with different language, kind of promoting it and linking back to your website? That's something that I've tried before.
That would probably be more of what I'd lean toward, is adjusting it, maybe doing an audio on one place, a video on the other place of the same thing. Like you can read your blog and create audio. Yep. You could create video with SlideShare with the same exact blog. So you can repurpose content, and you can go to Fiverr and get a infographic done with the exact same content.
Yep. So I actually want to actually dig a little bit on how you're advising clients on content, because I actually heard through the grapevine something about how you've created content, and I'm fascinated by it. So can you tell me about how you created your ebook?
What did you hear through the grapevine? Oh my gosh.
I heard through the grapevine that you had an incredibly interesting process to do it, whereby you basically gave presentations.
My physical book.
Yes, sorry, your physical book.
My LinkedIn and social selling for business development. I actually recorded a class. Is that what you heard?
Yes, that's what I heard. Can you explain it? Walk us through it.
All right, so I actually recorded a 3-hour class and had it transcribed for very little money, and then edited it. And in about 4 weeks, I had a book up on Amazon.
That is ridiculously awesome. And I am so in awe that I only actually heard this a couple days ago from a mutual friend of ours. I believe it was from Francine.
Oh, isn't she wonderful? I love her.
Absolutely. Love her to death. So I think she was the one that told me about it. But it's interesting because one of the challenges that we run into with clients, and I'd be interested to hear if you run into the same challenge or how you deal with it with clients, is the capacity to create content. And when I hear about things like what you did there, where you created a class, you recorded it, and all of a sudden now you have a book, this idea of repurposing bigger content into smaller chunks or just changing the format of it seems to me to be an amazing shortcut to create a mass amount of content. But even when I bring up some of these ideas to clients, it still feels overwhelming. How are you advising clients right now in the social selling space to create the content that's going to be valuable to their audience and help move the sales conversation along while still not overwhelming them?
That's a great question. And really, I think there are 3, maybe 4-ish ways. So the first one is anytime you answer a question to a client in your email, look at that and see if that is blog worthy, because 9 times out of 10 you can create that and you've already started it. Number 2, I actually have them use BuzzSumo to look at trending topics. And I will say, do not read them. Do not read them. Just look at the topic. And if the topic inspires you, create that. Now, if they're not a writer, I'm a talker, clearly, right? So I have Dragon dictation on my phone, and if I have an idea, I talk it out, and and then I email it to myself, and then I edit it, and it becomes a blog. So that is a great way to get content. Is that 2 or 3?
That was 2. And let me just, while you think of the 3rd and 4th, I just want to piggyback on that real quick. One of the things that we do a lot with clients is if they are not the type to write, we will actually we'll ask them, well, how long is your commute into work? And they'll be like, oh, it's 20 minutes each way, commute 20 minutes in, then 20 minutes home. I'm like, well, would it be all right if I had my copywriter call you and ask you 5 questions every Tuesday morning? Okay. And what we do is we basically record those calls, and our copywriter just, copies all of the, listens to a recording and turns it into a blog post that they edit. Now we have content. So I think finding those shortcuts is one way of being really helpful to the client and getting around that content fear.
Yeah. So actually that was 3 because BuzzSumo, I kind of mixed them up. So
Yeah, I had answering questions, BuzzSumo for trending topics.
Just talk it out, like talk stuff, out. Right? Just and number 4 is my favorite, which is interview blogs, which is sort of what you just said, but it's a different twist. So go to your clients and your prospects with your questions and interview them, record it. And then, so it does a lot of things. So this is why it's my favorite, because it is so productive. It's got a million wins. Okay. So number 1, you get content. Number 2, you get appointments with people because you're interviewing them, not selling to them. Number 3, you build a relationship with these people that have nothing to do with sales. Number 4, they love you because you made them feel important, and you now share it with tons of people, and they share it with tons of people. So you build a network around their folks. And number 5, they feel like they owe you one. So,
because you've created content for them, which is a struggle for them, as well as highlighting them and making them look like a rock star.
Yeah, all kinds of fun stuff.
So I love this, and actually, believe it or not, we have been planning internally that we're going to be doing a series called Working With Us, and it's going to be just interviews. Every time we sign a new client, we're going to interview them on an audio podcast or possibly a video and audio, maybe 2 forms of content, and it's that same idea. We're going to talk to them not necessarily about us and what we do and whether, what they did with us, but more about what their business is about, who they serve, what's important to them, what are they connected to in the world, and all that sort of good stuff.
So now you go pick 3 prospects and do the same thing.
That is an idea that I hadn't thought of, but it's a really interesting idea.
I mean, it's so powerful. You get content, and particularly like if you're selling, maybe you're selling to some big CMOs, then they have a huge following, and then you get in front of their following because they're sharing their interview. Yeah. In fact, then you tell them, hey, link this interview to your LinkedIn profile, under projects. Yeah. And all of a sudden you get a whole new network. You've built a relationship. It has nothing to do with sales. And eventually they're going to say, so Jeff, what do you do? They'll give you permission to talk.
Yeah. I dig that. It's a great idea. So that kind of leads me into the next thing, and you've just given like a handful of really great tips on the content, but just shifting gears and kind of tweaking that a little bit. I wanted to ask you just, we advise clients on social selling as well. We're obviously doing it from a slightly different angle than you, but I was wondering if you could give a couple quick tips for people to kind of get their head wrapped around the idea of social selling, why social selling is different, and just a few like, hey, have you ever thought of doing this kind of things? We have our own examples, but I'd love to hear how, when somebody says, what is social selling? What do you say?
Well, what is social selling is a little different than what to do. So I'll quickly go through what is social selling, and I see it as 4 stages. The very first one is listening. So identifying what your prospects, what your clients are liking, sharing, commenting on, what's of interest to them, what's happening in their industry, really identifying what matters to them. That's the first part of social selling, and often that's the piece that's ignored. The second one is education and insights. This is absolutely vital to create the know and like in that trio of know, like, and trust. This is where you can shine, where you can prove your subject matter expertise and really offer content that is relevant to your audience. And whether you're sharing original content, which is really valuable, or you're finding content and sharing it with adding your 2 cents, this is the stage that is absolutely vital for you to build that reputation as a thought leader. Stage number 3 is prospecting. And this is often where most people get very excited when it comes to business development. And this is about leveraging client referrals, getting more networking, introductions, and finding the right people and engaging with them. This can be done in lots of places within LinkedIn and other social selling tactics. But it's really very important that you engage as much as possible. You can like and comment and share other people's content. You can find great content on LinkedIn Pulse or using BuzzSumo, which is a site that will give you great content based on keywords, and start to not only engage with the author, but also the people that author has already attracted. So you've got people liking and commenting blog posts that are very similar to what you do, and you're letting the author do a lot of that hunting for you. Stage number 4 is sort of this borderline of social selling and in-person. It's really about leveraging all of the business intelligence that you've gathered, all of the information about the decision makers, the influencers, the company, the industry, and ultimately bringing it all together so that when you are in front of that client, whether it be an in-person meeting or your first phone call, you are positioning yourself as the vendor of choice.
So the 4 stages, just to recap, the 4 stages: listening, education, insights, prospecting, and then what I'm going to call business intelligence equipped in-person selling.
And I always say it's positioning.
Positioning. All right, cool. I dig it. I dig that. So I want to touch a little bit more on the prospecting thing because people do get excited about that. And in the prospecting phase, you touched a little bit on content. So can you give us a couple, for the people listening, we have our own ways that we encourage people to repurpose content and find content and share content. What are some of the things that you recommend to your clients?
So there are really 4 areas that we focus on. One is anytime a client answers their client's question. So whether it's an email or a verbal question, many times that's really content waiting to be formed. If their client's asking a question, there might be a lot of other people that care about that as well. The second one is finding what are trending topics out there using BuzzSumo or other programs to identify what are people liking based on keywords that reflect your business. And I actually tell them, don't read it. Just look at the topic and then you write. And you can read it after you're done writing, but I want to make sure it's as original as possible. The third one is if you're a talker, I have Dragon dictation on my phone. When I have ideas or I'm in the car, I can talk. It types it for me. I email it and edit it. Really simple. And number 4, which is absolutely my favorite, are interviewing your clients and your prospects. I absolutely sprinkle some clients in there, but this is truly an opportunity to get in front of your prospect in a non-selling way. Really, it's a win-win-win-win all across the board. You can get in front of them in a non-threatening way. You're promoting them. You're making them feel important. You're getting content. They're sharing your content, and you matter a lot more than a typical salesperson. So really leverage those interviews to gather some phenomenal content, and it's kind of it's prospecting at the same time.
Got it. So in the prospecting conversation, how important is CRM in your world? Like, how often are you using a CRM? Are there any social CRMs that are even out there that you're finding a lot of success with? And in terms of what you capture, how much detail is too much? What do you advise people focus on?
So I think a CRM is really important to stay organized and to follow up well. There's a great social CRM called Nimble, Nimble. And what I love about it is it works inside of my email platform. I use Gmail, and I can add to Nimble. I can take notes. I can put in tasks and never have to leave my email server. It also brings in all of the other social, if they're tweeting, you'll see their tweets there. I actually use it in conjunction with Reportive. And it's really a very powerful CRM because it's so simple, number one. Salespeople will use it, and because it's really effective. And it's a smart CRM because it's bringing in stuff you don't have to add at all. To your second question, how much information do I put in there? Typically, I mean, there might be some personal stuff that I'll gather, but typically I spend most of my time on business intelligence and identifying their needs and making sure that everything that they talk about gets recorded. Anything that would be relevant to me providing a solution makes it into there, because I think that's the most critical piece for me.
Okay, fair. Bryn, just shifting gears, you've really managed to have a rapid ascent into the spotlight of social selling. And obviously, you're one of the people to follow. You've been on a number of the different social selling who's who lists. But where do you get your information from? Who are some of the peers that you really respect? And obviously, I know that you're not going to be able to mention all of them. I see that you talk with a tremendous number of people, and it would be probably far too many minutes for you to list out everybody, and you'd still inevitably forget someone. But just who are a couple just right off the top of your head that are kind of must follows in the social selling space?
So John Ferrara, Nimble for sure. Vivica Von Rosen, she's the at LinkedIn expert, really wonderful. Colleen McKenna, Michael DeGrout, Beth Granger, Bob Woods, Andy Foote. I could go on and on. Lindsay Stenman, just amazing, amazing voices out there. Ted Prodromo, I'm going to say that wrong. Prodromo, yes, but he's worth finding out how to spell that. But there's just really great minds out there that are doing some great things.
Do you know Julio Viscovich?
I do, and for 2 years I've been saying Julio, and someone just corrected me and said it's Julio. So yes, I do. He's fabulous.
It's funny. I've spoken at conferences with him, and there are a number of people who have also spoken at conferences and still call him Julio. So don't feel bad about it.
Yeah, so he's a great guy, and I mean, so the people I mentioned are primarily the LinkedIn people, but there's a whole group of Twitter people that are fantastic out there as well.
Rockin'. You've recently fallen in love with Blab IM. Can you talk to me a little bit about how it's been working for you, why you think it's such a good platform, and kind of whether or not you see it working for any kind of business, or if there's specific use cases, I guess? Why has it worked for you?
So it's been fabulous for me. I mean, it's live streaming at 2.0, right? So we had Meerkat, it's not gone yet, but it's going, and Periscope, which is still going very strong, which are these one-way live streaming, which I think is fantastic if you're interviewing someone or you're filming a TED Talk that you're there live. There's some real benefits to it, but it can get lonely. It's very much one way. And in Periscope, unless you're using Catch, you lose the whole conversation, in comments. And I just don't love. I love watching Periscope, but I just didn't love being on Periscope. Blab allows you to have conversations with 3 people at a time. So you can start with one topic and end up going down many different paths. And I love that. I love the interaction. It gives you an opportunity to really help people and provide solutions and be seen as a subject matter expert. And it also gives you opportunities to learn. I'm launching a new company that's a subscription coaching company. And I've never sold a subscription before. Any sale I've ever had has been a pretty big ticket, so I have to have a conversation with someone before they buy. This is a very different arena. So I've been popping into Blabs, and I've been given such incredible advice on, how to organize my marketing around a new product that I wasn't familiar with before. So it's just been a great tool. I've actually hired a vendor through Blab, and I've actually gotten 3 pieces of business, one that's pretty significant. And I've only been on 75 days or something like that. That's
pretty amazing. So I think that's a pretty good one call to action for people to get on Blab and give it a shot if it's the right kind of situation for them. It's probably not right for every industry.
It's got to be someone that you've got to be able to offer advice and solutions and ideas, and you've got to be able to do that on the fly. And if you feel comfortable that that's what you can do, you put up your topic. You also have to market it. So market it to your existing tribe. Make sure that you're pulling people in that already know you. And then once they're there, it's easy to tweet it out and share it on Facebook, and so they'll pull in their network, and it grows pretty rapidly.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think that's a good place for us to call it an evening on our podcast. You've been a fabulous guest. I know you have things to do, but before you go, please let people know where they can find you and be social with you.
So I am on LinkedIn, of course. So Bryn Tillman, I'm the only one there. At Social Sales Link is my Twitter handle. If you would like to check out my book, linkedinbook.info will take you to it on Amazon. And if you're interested in what we're talking about today, I invite you to have a phone call, and you can schedule that at callbrynne, CALLBRYNNE.com, and schedule 15 minutes with me.
Awesome. And to those out there who are interested in social selling, I strongly suggest that you follow Bryn, that you connect with Bryn, and if you are interested in taking a step further, please schedule that 15-minute phone call. She definitely knows what she is doing. Bryn, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate your time and all of that good stuff. To those out there listening, I hope you got a tremendous amount of value out of this, and tune in for our next show where we're bringing on another great guest. Take care. Good night. Good day. Whatever time you're listening. Thanks for listening. This has been Conversations, the True Voice Media podcast. And if this is your first time listening, please do us a favor and drop by iTunes or Stitcher and give us a rating. Tell us what you love about the show and what we can do to improve the show. If you're not yet a subscriber, you can subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher, or you can be notified by email about new episodes. To subscribe, just drop by truevoicemedia.com/conversations. Tune in next time where I bring on another incredible guest and have another interesting conversation. See you next time.